The large brown bear charged. There is no defining way to describe what followed. I ran. I ran like a man who had suddenly remembered he left the gas on in Calcutta. Branches whipped my face, snow exploded under my boots, my soaked red serge tunic clung to me like a second frozen skin. Behind me came the thunder of her paws and the huffing roar that seemed to shake the trees themselves. I dodged left, right, scrambled up a rocky slope, slipped, fell, scrambled up again. My lungs burned, my legs were turning to jelly. But terror is a wonderful spur. The bear was gaining. I could hear her breath, and I could smell the hot, fishy reek of her. Then the ground dropped away sharply. I skidded down a steep bank and found myself in a narrow gully with sheer rocks on both sides. A dead end. I spun round just as the grizzly appeared at the top, silhouetted against the grey sky and deep forest, like some nightmare from a child's fever dream. She reared up on her hind legs, towered 8 feet tall, jaws open, saliva stringing from yellow fangs. This was it. After surviving Balaclava, Afghanistan, half the brothels of Asia, and God knows how many cuckolded husbands, I was going to be eaten by a bear in the middle of nowhere because a half-mad Irish policeman wanted to cross some ice. How perfectly Lionheartian. She dropped to all fours and started down the gully towards me. Slow and deliberate now, savouring the moment. I backed against the rock, hands scrabbling for a stone, a branch, anything. Then, crack! A gunshot rang out, shockingly loud in the narrow space. The bear froze, head snapping towards the sound. Crack! A second shot. This one kicked up snow inches from her paw. With a furious, frustrated roar, she wheeled round and lumbered back up the slope, vanishing into the trees, with her cubs trailing behind. I stood there panting, heart trying to hammer its way through my chest. From the rim of the gully, a figure appeared, long rifle still smoking in his hands. It was McTavish, the same scarred whiskey trader Crozier had warned off days earlier. He looked down at me with a crooked tobacco-stained grin. "Hello, mate. Will," he drawled, in that thick London cockney that sounded completely wrong out here in this wilderness. "If it ain't that fancy red coat, looks like you've had a bit of trouble, mate." He scrambled down, surprisingly agile for a man who looked like he'd been assembled from spare parts. "Come on then, mate," he said, offering a filthy hand. "I can't leave you out here for the bears. I've got a cabin not far. A cup of tea'll sort you right out, mate. The drink that cheers, eh?" I was too cold and exhausted to argue. I let him help me up the slope, and we set off through the thickening forest, snow crunching underfoot. The trees closed in, dark and silent, and the mountains loomed like prison walls. On the way, he chatted easily, as if we were all pals strolling down the strand. "I live up here with my mum, I do. A nice little place, very quiet, just the 3 of us now." 3. I filed that away without comment. The cabin was small, rough-hewn, smoke curling from a stone chimney. McTavish pushed the door open with his boot. "Here we go, mate. In you go. Sit yourself down by the fire. I'll put the kettle on." Inside, it was surprisingly warm, a big stone hearth roaring with logs. We both sat down opposite each other in front of the glowing fire. The flames crackled loud in the little cabin, throwing red light across the rough wooden table. McTavish pushed a tin mug of strong sweet tea towards me, then settled back in his chair with a sigh like a man who has waited years for company. "Here you go, mate," he said, cockney thick as fog on the Thames. "Here you go. Get your laughing gear round that. Nothing like a decent cup of tea after a swim in the river. Cheers, Sir Terry." I took the mug. My hands were still shaking from the cold. The tea burned going down, but it was good. McTavish lit a roll-up, leaned forward, elbows on the table, and studied me with those bright, unblinking eyes. "So," he said, smoke curling around his scarred face. "Lionheart, the famous Lionheart, 11th Hussars, Balaclava, all that. I read about you in the papers back in the day. Proper hero yous was. Tell me, mate, what's a gent like you doing out here in the middle of bloody nowhere with a bunch of redcoats chasing half-breeds?" I gave him the short version. Ottawa, Lansdowne, Crozier, the ice, the bear. He nodded slowly, sucking on his cigarette. Yeah. Yeah, sounds about right. That Irish fella always was a bit keen, weren't he? Still, you're here now, safe and sound and warm. Yeah, don't worry, mate, me and Mum will look after you. Won't we, Mum? He glanced at the closed bedroom door and smiled, soft and fond. I sipped the tea and said nothing. After a moment, he leaned back again, stretching his legs towards the fire. You know, I was in the army once myself. As a Cockney with a Jock surname, wouldn't you believe it? They stuck me in with the Liverpool Irish, volunteer battalion. But you know, they sent a few of us out when the real scrap kicked off back in 1879, Zulu War. You remember that one, don't you? Big news back home. Isandlwana, Rorke's Drift. All them bloody redcoats getting chopped up by blackfellas with spears. He chuckled, low and rasping. I was at Isandlwana, mate. Not the main fight. I was with a supply column that got cut off. 2 days we was stuck on a little kopie. No water, no food. Just us and the Zulus. Circling like dogs they were. 23 of us at the start. By the end, well, let's just say we made do, mate. He took a long drag, eyes on the fire. Funny thing, hunger. Makes a man think. You start looking at your mates different like, you know. You start wondering which bits of them taste the best. Shoulder or thigh. Funny what the mind does when it's starving. He laughed again, as if he told a mildly amusing anecdote about a bad pint. Anyway, we got out. Few of us, you know, come back to England. Tried the straight life for a bit, but it didn't take. Too noisy, you know. Too many people asking questions. So I come out here. Built this little place myself, quiet, peaceful, you know, just me and Mum. And the other 2 lads, of course, they used to live here. I kept my face blank. The other 2 lads? Well, that's 4. I thought you said 3. McTavish waved a hand, casual. Oh, you know, old mates from the regiment, fur traders now, you know, good blokes. You know, they helped me build the cabins, stayed a couple of winters, then... Well, you know, things happen in the mountains, don't they? You know, long winters, not enough food sometimes. You make do. He smiled at me over the rim of his mug. You ever been proper hungry, Sir Terry? I mean really hungry. The kind where you start hearing voices and the walls start looking like Sunday dinner. The fire popped. A log shifted. I took another sip of tea. It suddenly tasted wrong. Anyway, he went on cheerfully. Mum's in the bedroom. She don't come out much these days. Bit poorly, you know. But she likes meeting you gentlemen, always has. She'll want a proper look at you later. Proper lady, my mum. Oh, very particular about our guests. He leaned forward again, eyes bright in the firelight. You know what I like about you, Lionheart? You're a survivor, like me. Oh, yeah, I can tell. Blokes like us, well, you know, we don't die easy. We always find a way, even if it means eating what's in front of us. He laughed softly, tapping ash into the fire. More tea, mate. Outside, the wind moaned through the pines, and inside, the fire crackled and the bedroom door stayed shut. He refilled my mug, then his own, and then settled back. For a while, we sat in silence, the only sound the crackling of the logs. Then McTavish spoke again, voice lower, rougher, the Cockney drawl taking on a dangerous, almost dreamy edge. You know what the Zulus taught me, Lionheart? Respect. Real respect. When a man's looking at you like you're meat, you learn quick. You learn what you're willing to do to stay breathing. And once you've crossed that line, well... there ain't no coming back, is there? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Some nights up here, you know, when the wind's howling and the snow's coming down, you start talking to yourself, or to the ones you didn't make it, you know. You start wondering if they tasted better than the last rabbit you caught. Funny, innit? The firelight flickered across his scarred face. He looked almost peaceful. Then he leaned in closer, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Between you and me, mate, sometimes the best cut ain't the ones you expect. Sometimes it's the quiet ones, the ones who think they're clever, the ones who think they're safe. He held my gaze for a long second, then suddenly laughed, a short barking sound. Only joking, Lionheart, only joking. Oh, you should see your face. He stood up, stretching. Anyway, I got to use the outhouse, mate. Back in the tick. Now, don't go wandering off now. Mum don't like it when guests leave early. The door creaked shut behind him. The moment he was gone, I was on my feet. I crossed to the bedroom door, heart hammering, and eased it open. The smell hit me first. Sweet, heavy, and sickly. Oh my God. On the bed lay a suit made of skin. It had been carefully stitched together from human hide, 2 different tones of flesh, roughly tanned, and seams still raw. A curly wig sat on top of the empty head flap. Someone had dressed it in a faded dress, the kind a settler woman might have worn 20 years ago. Lipstick, bright, garish, had been smeared across where the mouth should be. The mother stared back at me with those empty eye holes. I stood there, and the penny dropped like the sound of a coffin lid closing. Well, at least I now know where the other 2 men went, I said. Behind me, the door creaked. I turned too late, and something heavy cracked me across the back of my skull. The world went black. And for the first time since the river, I realized I might have been safer with the bear.